America say no to war, a call to unarm. Let's pray for peace, but who's the enemy? Brothers and sisters, our suicidal push toward a global war must be stopped. The people of every country participating in this conflict, fought in Ukraine, suffering the economic consequences, must say no. Let's say no to Fiona Hill, made famous by Trump's call to Zelensky, who said that we are already in World War III. We, the people, think differently. Let's say no to leaders who escalate this war, who will not make peace, who poison the psyches and the stability of vast amounts of people for generations to come. We, the people, brothers and sisters, retain the ability to tell right from wrong when the stakes are this high. We know that this is not a cold world and this is not the 20th century, and no amount of saber rattling will jolt us into believing that Hitler has moved into the Kremlin and the Nazis are coming, masquerading as Russians. We were told we're post-historical. We cannot go backward. We, the people, must make sure Ukraine does not become the next Vietnam, since our leaders won't. These same leaders are the ones who globalized us, sent our jobs abroad, turned us from producers of goods to consumers of goods, made our borders irrelevant, all on the premise and promise that multinational corporations will guarantee world peace. Don't we all want world peace? We were asked. Well, yes. Ask every beauty contestant ever interviewed. Nationalism had made us vulnerable to the whims of a few men, leaders, like those who controlled billions of us in 1945. We're still fighting wars, localized wars all over, trying to disentangle the territorial and ideological knots willed by those despots every time they had a meeting on some island over a table. I remember that famous photo with Woodrow Wilson and I don't know who else, lying on the floor, poring over maps, creating the Middle East. Look how well that went from then until now. They got us into the reckoning of the nuclear age, and suddenly they're bringing us right back into it. Wait, we gave in to globalization in exchange for peace, making the corporations wealthy in exchange for them guaranteeing peace so that they can maintain excellent trade, global trade. Now they want us to go back to the agrarian scarcity narrative of us or them. My loss is your win, all that old world bullshit. They want us to fall for the PR that, like Zelensky, is the latest Game of Thrones. They rewrite history in real time as it suits them in front of us and make it real by printing money with which they pay whomever it suits them. And they pay whatever regime they think it's going to help them, so they prop it up. They keep this militarized Ukraine on life support, basically, sacrificing its people to the beasts of war, exaggerating and exasperating the human suffering so that they can exploit our empathy and manipulate our emotions and keep us invested in full to the military-industrial complex, to the war economy of America, of the world. They add money for Ukraine in every bill Congress has signed into law, because money in this day and age is life, or so they think. We have paid Ukraine in 6 months more money than the entire defense budget of Russia was last year. Do we, the American people, feel threatened by Russia for an invasion or nuclear attack. No, we feel more threatened by our own government's appetite for these, brute cliches. We're watching it resuscitate the zombie Red Scare and the idea of the great Satan. I mean, this is so transparent. We're watching our leaders demonize Putin like they did Saddam and Gaddafi, long enough so that we will celebrate his televised murder. I mean, our leaders hope to reunite us beyond our internal clashes against some sort of like manufactured common enemy who doesn't threaten us. Are they fabricating a reason for us to attack Russia? Even though the entire Google, CNN, mono media regime is conspiring to convince us that we want this war, as if we are not capable of a single clear thought, we don't. We celebrated the fall of the Berlin Wall as the end of history, remember? We were promised that sectarian war and getting involved in sectarian war would bring us a peace dividend. And then we watched our leaders waste our resources and our troops in faraway countries whose borders had been drawn by previous leaders after earlier wars. And each time we left behind broken states whose ancient animosities were revived and still simmer under the surface because of us. And they kept being held together by strong men whom we pay off. Look at Egypt. I mean, it's all over the world. So the consequences of war are only more war, more revenge, more generational hatred. We are not so insecure as to think that we Americans cannot be the greatest nation on earth, the leader of the world, without bullying the world. That's actually so backward, so old world, so un-American. So what motivates all mainstream media to beat the drums of escalation besides the ratings? Yes, war is where the truth goes to die, right? So what truth are they so afraid of? What truth are they trying to bury? Why are they forcing us to pick sides in a faraway, localized, centuries-old tribal conflict? What's this Russia-Ukraine conflict? How is it different than, let's say, Spain oppressing and fighting against Catalonia and the Basque people? Or Britain oppressing Ireland? Or Turkey oppressing the Kurds, the Armenians? Why are we obsessed all of a sudden with regime change in Russia? What are they not telling us? What are they hiding? If these are destruction tactics, throwing sand in our eyes so we can't see what's glaring in front of us, what is it? Can someone in charge even define what victory looks like? Is it simply that they will put an end to all this blood and sacrifice and tears, mother's tears, when Putin falls? Will we want to put a puppet in his place? Is that what it's about? If that's the case, then our leaders just want Putin to do what Saddam did when he declared that he had WMDs, which he actually didn't, as a macho misstep. And before you know it, Putin too will be crawling out of a spider hole in his native town with his arms up, surrendering himself to teenage American soldiers, only to swing off a rickety scaffold in front of the crowd of his enemies chanting on worldwide TV, Allahu Akbar, with a noose, or the equivalent, with a noose around his old neck. Gaddafi had even worse of an end on the back of a Toyota truck. So I don't know, are our leaders like writing these soap operatic scenarios to keep us addicted to political drama on the world stage? simply so we side with our like gargantuan bulimic Pentagon, or is there something darker behind all this? I mean, if it's simply to support our obsession or addiction to war, to the glass economy, during which all of our manufacturers stops manufacturing whatever goods no one's buying anymore, and instead they focus on making toys that will be destroyed, death toys that the Pentagon will use as soon as possible. That's the definition of a glass economy. And unlike peace economies, it thrives through war, right? Like a vampire, like Dracula. It thrives when war is the theater, especially when the American spectators are not personally threatened, but still fully engaged. And the glass economy builds goods to be broken. They have no staying power. They don't need to have quality other than murder, and they are going to be used up as soon as they're being built, right? So it has to start over. And as I said, it turns consumers into paying spectators. So the people expect very little from their leaders during a glass economy, and the military industrial complex is made very rich by corporate welfare, because the government prints money to pay them to make toys to ship far away, where we can quickly destroy them either ourselves or through our proxies, and that creates the economical miracle, right, of America. Whose shape is like an Ouroboros. It's like the snake that lives off eating its own tail. It's really kind of a cannibalist economy. Maybe this is America's way of pulling away from non-stop by the obsession with the trade with China and with NAFTA, which turned us from a manufacturing economy into a service economy and made us so dependent. So now there is this, turn, and during times of change in policy, the thing that we can do best is make some war, so no one is really looking at what else is happening in the sidelines, which is really where the main change is occurring. I don't know. It could be also that the main focus, the main purpose for this war has been these sanctions. I mean, I don't feel morally victorious because we unilaterally froze the assets of all Russians who have anything. The inference here is that America has no respect for property rights. I shudder to see how easily America can confiscate the holdings of the world's rich. I'm not rich and I'm not a fan of the rich, but I don't take pride in, taking people hostage so arbitrarily, based simply on our elected leaders' view of a war that they were not elected to fight to begin with. But it is possible that the escalation is a way to terrorize economies like Russia, like OPEC, like China, that might be interested in cutting themselves off from the American, dollar bandwagon. This was something that Saddam, in fact, had tried to do, to get off the petrodollar and attach his oil to the ruble, and that's when that's when we invaded his country and took him out. So anyway, clearly the rule of international law and free markets are not universal values, because we make them and we break them as we see fit. So that is pretty clear with these vast international sanctions and internal sanctions against naysayers. So corporate money is consolidated behind one worldview. Just creepy, because we have all been told that trade is apolitical, and so long as we have free trade, we will not have fanaticism. So it proves that now has changed, right? America's monopower, economic monopower, must be maintained at the cost of whatever it takes. So globalization really made our interconnected world more dependent on this monopower, which can weaponize sanctions in a way never seen before in the history of money and property. So maybe that's what world peace was all about, protecting the primacy of the dollar. Maybe that's why global wars were fought and regional conflicts were fanned, and acronym institutions like NATO, UN, IMF were created at Bretton Woods and elsewhere to consolidate the holdings of the world central banks in US dollars and bank the money of the world's wealthy in America and make sure that they all agree with the one kind of mainstream belief system. Well, whatever it is, our leaders are taking us to the brink of nuclear war just to force us to reunite around them and their donors and funders and fundraisers. And they are emptying the cellars of the Defense Department, so we have to also raise the military budget and build more cutting-edge, costly war weapons that make war feel more unreal. I mean, war is as real as death, but it seems to me that it's possible that also the Pentagon wants to get rid of all the weapons it hasn't used, so that it can build space weapons and a space station and move the headquarters of some of these conflicts to space, so that their view, the vista of what's happening on the ground is much clearer, and America can have, again, monopoly in space. So that upgrade is a possibility. But whatever it is, the risks are too great, the nuclear risks, and we cannot gather in unanimous support behind leaders who are willing to risk genocide, who are manufacturing this nuclear threat, who are demonizing foreign, faraway leaders, and in the third millennium. We draw no sadistic pleasure from pounding people who do not threaten us, and I believe that we should vote no to war in this election in 2 weeks and repudiate the forces that are killing for profit. I believe we should vote no to permanent war. We don't want to be Rome, ancient Rome. And I believe that we should consider the possibility that the real conflict is between the American people and the Uniparty that's run by the corporate dictatorship that stays in power by deceiving us and engaging us emotionally in endless wars. That's it, my brothers and sisters. Let me know what you think. I hope you're with me.